introductory session of Pratidhwani, the Alumni Conclave 2014. We are honoured to have with us Mrs. Anjali Gulati and Mr. Sumit Bhatnagar as the keynote speakers for this session. Director Dr. S. Garimela, Professor Neena Muncherji and Professor Nitesh Bhatt. We now request Professor Neena Muncherji to escort our guests to the dais.
Mrs. Anjali Gulati is the founder director of RISE at People Connect Private Limited, an HR services firm. RISE at People Connect is the premier executive search firm catering to middle and senior management talent needs. It aims at managing careers for senior professionals, second careers for women, advisory and analytics services, professional resume writing services amongst others for national and international clients. Prior to this, she was working as a principal consultant at Pegasus International. Ma'am carries 13 years of experience in HR and has worked with companies like Reliance Communication, Tata Teleservices and ICICI Bank. She graduated from IMNU in the year 2001 with an MBA in HR. Her areas of expertise are employee engagement, talent acquisition, recruitments, talent management and HR consulting. We welcome you, ma'am. As a mark of our gratitude, we would like to present Mrs. Gulati with a bouquet.
We also have with us Mr. Sumit Bhatnagar as the second keynote speaker for the session. Mr. Bhatnagar is an alumnus of Institute of Management, Nirma University 2001 batch. He is currently working as the Director, Human Resources at Dell and is based in Bangalore. Prior to Dell, he was working with Emphasis. Mr. Bhatnagar carries experience in multiple domains like operations, business analysis, and in human resources. In his present assignment, he is the leader for Asia HR Services and has core responsibilities for payroll, site operations, global data management, and HR operations. Prior to this role, he was the HR head of Dell India Sales. In addition to his core job, Mr. Sumit is actively involved in partnering with various business schools in India, like the IIMs, Symbiosis, etc. He is married to Mrs. Sushma, an alumnus of 2001 batch, and they have an 8-year-old daughter, Neha. We welcome you, sir. As a mark of our gratitude, we would like to present Mr. Sumit Bhatnagar with a bouquet.
We have with us Director Sir Dr. S. Garimela. We welcome you, sir.
We have with us Professor Neena Muncherji, Program Chairperson, BBA MBA. She is the chair of the session. We welcome you, ma'am.
We also have with us Program Chairperson MBA FP, Professor Nitesh Bhatt. We welcome you, sir. We now request Mrs. Anjali Gulati to kindly address the audience.
Thank you for being here and thank you for calling us here. I think it is a big honor to be here on this side today. After 13 years of, I can almost remember that we were a part of the audience and what all we went through to come here. It's been a long journey of 13 years, but I think it's been worth it. And I think the institute has played a big role in what I think all of us are today. So I would like to talk about gender diversity. I am very happy to see that this year the intake of girls in the batch is at a substantial number. I mean, in our batch, I remember we were a handful, but this year the numbers, the number of girls that I'm seeing here, it's very encouraging. Okay, don't we know that we are different from the guys? Men play team sports, women play relationships. Oh my God. I think we all of us internally know that this is true, right? Oh, you want to go back? Can't we all multitask? I mean, how many of us multitask? Women. We can talk on the phone, we can do our presentation, we can, think of, okay, what happened. I mean, I have 2 kids, so I think I'm a pro at it. And I can talk on the phone, I can tell my maid, ye khana isko de do, isko utha do, isko sula do. And make this for dinner while I'm talking to a client I'm writing an email to the client. So I think women are like really, really good at multitasking. Done? Okay, see, diversity by itself, like we were just talking about it, that it does include differently abled, it does include people from different backgrounds in terms of religions, caste, whatever. But yes, gender diversity is something that is very close to my heart and something that I have, I thought that we should discuss that today. Because, a large percentage of our population, 49% of our population today is women. But is there a representation of the same number in the organizations that we work for? No, it's not. We're barely at about 18 to 20% in most organizations, but they are gunning for a 31 to 33%. Because that is where they feel that at the 30% figure is when the real inflection point happens. Right? So see, there is, like what I say, that even if there is a strong business case that we have for diversity, and there are 2 points to it. One is the revenue perspective and one is the consumer perspective. So women, like I think in the previous session, we have seen exactly what this meant, that if you hire women, if you encourage women to work, if you get them back into the workforce, there is greater profitability in organizations. There is better decision making, there is better goal orientation, and there is better organizational excellence. We've spoken about all this during the day. So I'm just reiterating it that yes, there is definitely a business case to have more women in the organization. The consumer perspective, how many of you have seen that in your houses traditionally, or even you yourself, how many of you make the purchasing decisions? How many women make the purchasing decisions? See, typically what happens, for example, like for people like us who are married and who have kids, I think I call the shots in the house. In terms of, which AC are we going to buy, which fridge are we going to buy, which car are we going to buy, where are we going to have a house. All that is primarily decided by the woman in the house. And I'm sure all the married people will agree. Right? So that's where the whole consumer perspective comes in, that if our main consumer is a woman, why can't a woman design a product? Why can't a woman say that, okay, this is the market where I want to go, this is how I will go to that market, and this is how I will get my consumers. Also, right now women are running more businesses. I made this change about 5 years ago when I started on my own. But yes, I know that even buying a whole ream of paper is also something that I am doing today. Right? Which printer to buy was my decision. And yes, because I am doing my own thing today, so I have more purchasing power. And that's when there is a positive impact on the whole economy as a whole. So there are multiple women who are doing this, people who instead of getting out of the workforce when the first child happens, want to stay back or want to do something on their own. That's what increasingly we're telling women to do, that instead of moving out, do something which you like. Use it as a point in life. Sometimes I think that we're very blessed that we get that chance. How many men will get that chance? That okay, I can just give up because I wanted to give up, I can take a break. I don't think that many men today have that choice. Right, so for women it's still easier. I can take a break and I say, oh, I think I'm bored of this HR job, let me start on my own. Maybe I'm going to do kids toys, or maybe I'm going to start a restaurant of my own. And the husband will say, yeah, okay, how much money do you want? Right, so yes, yeah. So I think we are very, very blessed that we can take that chance in life and say that yes, I can start on my own. Okay, women look for more features in the product as we are very busy. So if there's a mixie, I will say, okay, what all can this do? Can this do this? If yes, then it's okay, otherwise forget it. Let's look at the next one. Right? And this is all researched and proven. So if you want, we can look at the data points as well. But this is all researched and proven that women prefer women salespersons. Obviously the men do, but women do too. Because they explain products better, they are more service oriented, and they tell the product as it is. They tell you the features as it is. Whereas we feel that a man only wants to sell. You know, ये ले लो इसका target पूरा हो जाएगा. That is what the notion people have, and that is why men also prefer women sales people, because they tell them, okay, these are the 5 things that will work for this product. And obviously they are more patient. They will listen to you and answer your 101 questions. You can keep going back and saying, but इसमें ये नहीं है, but the woman will still answer. There are some more points that I want to talk, say about the consumer perspective really. That today on LinkedIn, how many of you are LinkedIn? Very good. Please be very, very active on LinkedIn. Today that is the tool to network. And today on LinkedIn, 24 to 29% of the users are women. We have to up it. We can't be at 29%. See, for example, Vodafone, which is a client of ours, has come up with this new concept called an angel store, which is that this store is run by only women. From the cashier to the service person to the store manager to the housekeeper, all of them are only women. And in the country, they have 19 such stores. And they, in terms of profitability, are doing better than the rest of the 150 minus 19 stores. So, which means women power. There is also another example that I want to share at this point, which is there is a Kirloskar water pump plant in Tamil Nadu. Has anybody of you heard about it? It's run only by women, and the consumers are going back again and again because they have lesser defects. So there's definitely a business case in terms when we look at hiring women. Okay. So this is something. Can I make a pointer? See, today you will be at the first job level. Can you just where you will be an individual contributor, single or married but not a parent. And you're just starting out, so you will be an individual contributor. Here, what are your primary needs? Learning, growth and fun at work. Here, fun at work is really important because otherwise I will get bored and I would want to look for a new job. Right? So there is, have you seen the axis? Can you see the axis clear? Is it clear at the back? Yes. Okay. Then there is a maternity break and being a first time parent. Where at that stage in your career, also it is a new one because you would have just graduated to managing a team. Where you would have at least some, you would have 1 or 2 direct reports now given to you. And at that time, what does a woman really look for? The primary needs are flexi or work from home. Childcare break so that I know my child is safe in good hands. Appreciation and understanding because I am stretched all over the place. I have a child to manage, I have my work to manage. So at least somebody who says, yeah, you're doing a good job. And special facilities at work. Then again, see if you can see that there are those dips which happen. So those dips is what really organizations need to take care of. And really is where the mass exodus happens. Because the moment the first child happens, see if I'm married, I may change location, but I will still go back to the workforce. Like somebody said that there is permanent retirement. One of our speakers said that. Right? So there should not be a permanent retirement at that stage, and that is why then the next level is school-going child and a second maternity break. Because then it's time for the second one to happen. And what are my primary needs now? Career advice, counseling, which tell me that yes, you have it in you, you have the potential, you just have to focus on your career. Because at that point, then family, my child, my school, the child's school, homework, all that starts becoming a priority. Then mentoring, mentors and top management, coaching and training, reskilling or upskilling. General managerial, senior leadership role, and that's where the whole thing happens. So typically, okay, how many of women here think that they're going to become the CEOs in the near future? See, that's exactly what I'm talking about. That out of this whole audience of women, I can see only a couple of hands going up. Which is really, really not what we want to do. Come on, why are you doubting yourselves? You can run companies too. You can then run big organizations too. Okay. So these are really the questions that are in front of organizations now. How do you increase the number of women in the company? Resourcing and infusion is definitely the first thing. And today it is going to happen from these schools like ours, where the number of women are increasing as every batch increases. Then engaging women, helping them go to the next level. This is where the counseling, career, mentors and all that happens. Because why does a woman not want to stand up and okay? Suppose, for example, an AHL is going to open a new branch in somewhere in Gujarat. So how many men will say that yes, I'm going to go and run that branch? How many of you will say, yeah, I'm going to? It's a challenge. I will go and run the branch. How many of you will say that? And how many women? Not a single. See, that is why this is the attitude and this is the self-limiting beliefs that we have in ourselves, which really needs to change. Why? Why shouldn't we go and do it? What is stopping us? You're studying in the same places, you have the same background, you're as qualified as the other guy, then why not? Right? Reinducting into the workforce post a break, why women do not go back to the same organization. Today, for example, this happened to me also. I used to work with ICICI before my son was born. But going back to ICICI was never an option for me. Why? What do organizations do rightly or wrongly that I don't want to go back to the same place? I may take up a job somewhere else, but I may have to work more because I have to prove my credibility. If I've been in an organization for 3 years, 4 years, they already know that okay, these are the person's strengths, these are the weaknesses, this is where what she's good at, and this is where we need to push her more. But why do I take that gamble and say that I'm not going back to this organization? So that's where I think the real thing of staying in touch with a woman while she's on a maternity break is really, really important, and telling them that yes, we want you back. There are some instances that we've heard in the recent past of the role has gone away. There is no longer a role for the person to go back to. There is no longer a team that the person had is now moved somewhere else. Or we have a role which is smaller, but we can give it to you. Why do organizations have that attitude in mind? And the most important is sensitizing the men in the workforce. Because men, when they have kids of their own and when they have wives, they're okay to say that, yeah, okay, you take care of the child, I'm going to work. But the same men who have women in their teams, how do they deal with them? Now, how do you say that, okay, yes, this is your strength? Do you go out? Do men go out for cigarette breaks with women employees? How many? Why do men discuss all the important things that have to happen on a cigarette break or on a let's do a drinks after work drinks session? And why does all the strategy have to get decided there? So that's the real change in attitude that needs to happen. Right? If when somebody becomes a first-time parent, I think it is as big an event in a man's life as it is in a woman's life. Then why do men not get more than 15 days paternity leave? They also need to bond with the child. So these are very, very issues that really I think we really need to think about. And we as men and women who are going to step into the workforce need to be clear on what we want. Also, see, I think another thing is that when women take breaks after childbirth or whatever, what have they done to stay relevant in the workforce? I'm on a break, I'm not taking calls, I'm only doing, like I watch TV, I talk to my maid, I go down and play with my child. What else? Have you upskilled? Or what have you done to be at par with where you were 2 years ago? And when they say that, okay, I want to go back and I'm not getting the salary that I want. If I left it at 10 lakhs, I want a 15 lakhs. Why? What have you done in those 2 years to demand that? Because if I can hire a guy at the same salary who will hit the ground running, why should I look at you just because I have to meet my diversity numbers, that I should look at a woman who's not done enough in the last 2 years? That she will still take her time to come up to speed, and once she comes in and she'll say, I have to leave, it's 6:30, I want to leave. Right, so how do it's basically a lot of thinking that needs to happen at this level, especially for the women before you enter the workforce, about what your long-term goals are going to be. Today, if you ask me, when I was in your place 13 years ago, I didn't know that I'm going to be here today, that I'm going to have my own setup, I'm going to have 2 kids. I didn't know that. It's been a long journey, but yes, a tough one at that. But I've made it, in the sense that I've managed to be around for my kids. I know by what time my kids come from school. I know I go to the most important meetings that have to be done. I just plan my life a little better. When we launched Back to the Front as part of our initiatives that we at People Connect are doing, it was very close to our hearts, because I think all of us have gone through that. My whole team is only women. We have 20 people now, and it's only women, and most of them are mothers. So we totally understand that why the break happens, what is it that you need to do to come back, and what is it that you need to structure your life a little better. And I think that can really start now. I wish there was somebody who could have told me that, when you were in B school, that, okay, yeah, 4 years down the line you will take a break, but what do you do with yourself? I don't want to sit at home doing nothing. Fortunately for me, this has worked out. What if it didn't? The pressure of a double income is always there. We have a house, we have a car, we have EMIs to pay. So I definitely don't want to sit at home and watch TV the whole day. What have I studied for? My parents also spend the same amount of money for my education as my husband's did. So why am I different? Today I'm very happy and proud to say that yes, for the last 3 years my husband is also on his own. He's trying to set up his media business and I'm funding him. So that's a big achievement for me. Now I hope the next time I ask the CEO question, I see a lot more women hands go up. In fact, I have a short video. It's a video by Sheryl Sandberg, who is the CEO at Facebook. It's a TED Talk video. So just play that.
So for any of us in this room today, let's start out by admitting we're lucky. We don't live in the world our mothers lived in, our grandmothers lived in, where career choices for women were so limited. And if you're in this room today, most of us grew up in a world where we have basic civil rights. And amazingly, we still live in a world where some women don't have them. But all that aside, we still have a problem, and it's a real problem. And the problem is this. Women are not making it to the top of any profession anywhere in the world. The numbers tell the story quite clearly. 190 heads of state, 9 are women. Of all the people in parliament in the world, 13% are women. In the corporate sector, women at the top, C-level jobs, board seats, tops out at 15-16%. The numbers have not moved since 2002 and are going in the wrong direction. And even in the non-profit world, a world we sometimes think of as being led by more women, women at the top, 20%. We also have another problem, which is that women face harder choices between professional success and personal fulfillment. A recent study in the US showed that of senior managers, of married senior managers, 2/3 of the married men had children, and only 1/3 of the married women had children. A couple of years ago, I was in New York and I was pitching a deal, and I was in one of those fancy New York private equity offices you can picture, and I'm in the meeting. It's about a 3-hour meeting, and 2 hours in, there's kind of needs to be that bio break, and everyone stands up, and the partner running the meeting starts looking really embarrassed, and I realize he doesn't know where the women's room is in his office. So I start looking around for moving boxes, figuring they just moved in, but I don't see any. And so I said, so did you just move into this office? And he said, no, we've been here about a year. And I said, are you telling me that I'm the only woman to have pitched a deal in this office in a year? And he looked at me and he said, Yeah, or maybe you're the only one who had to go to the bathroom. So the question is, how are we going to fix this? How do we change these numbers at the top? How do we make this different? I want to start out by saying I talk about this, about keeping women in the workforce, because I really think that's the answer. In the high-income part of our workforce, in the people who end up at the top Fortune 500 CEO jobs or the equivalent in other industries, the problem, I am convinced, is that women are dropping out. Now, people talk about this a lot, and they talk about things like flex time and mentoring and programs companies should have to train women. I want to talk about none of that today, even though that's all really important. Today I want to focus on what we can do as individuals. What are the messages we need to tell ourselves? What are the messages we tell the women that work with and for us? What are the messages we tell our daughters? Now at the outset, I want to be very clear that this speech comes with no judgments. I don't have the right answer. I don't even have it for myself. I left San Francisco, where I live, on Monday, and I was getting on a plane for this conference, and my daughter, who's 3, when I dropped her off at preschool, did that whole hugging the leg, crying, "Mommy, don't get on the plane" thing. This is hard. I feel guilty sometimes. I know no women, whether they're at home or whether they're in the workforce, that don't feel that sometimes. So I'm not saying that staying in the workforce is the right thing for everyone. My talk today is about what the messages are if you do want to stay in the workforce. And I think there are 3. 1, sit at the table. 2, make your partner a real partner. And 3, look at that, don't leave before you leave. Number 1, sit at the table. Just a couple weeks ago at Facebook, we hosted a very senior government official, and he came in to meet with senior execs from around Silicon Valley. And everyone kind of sat at the table, and then he had these 2 women who were traveling with him who were pretty senior in his department, and I kind of said to them, sit at the table, come on, sit at the table. And they sat on the side of the room. When I was in college, my senior year, I took a course called European Intellectual History. Don't you love that kind of thing from college? Wish I could do that now. And I took it with my roommate, Carrie, who was then a brilliant literary student and went on to be a brilliant literary scholar. And my brother, smart guy, but a water polo playing pre-med who was a sophomore. The 3 of us take this class together. And then Carrie reads all the books in the original Greek and Latin, goes to all the lectures. I read all the books in English and go to most of the lectures. My brother is kind of busy. He reads 1 book of 12 and goes to a couple of lectures, marches himself up to our room a couple days before the exam to get himself tutored. The 3 of us go to the exam together, and we sit down, and we study, sit there for 3 hours in our little blue notebooks. Yes, I'm that old. And we walk out, and we look at each other, and we say, how'd you do? And Carrie says, boy, I feel like I didn't really draw out the main point on the Hegelian dialectic. And I say, God, I really wish I had really connected John Locke's theory of property, the philosophers that follow. And my brother says, I got the top grade in the class. You got the top grade in the class? You don't know anything. The problem with these stories is that they show what the data shows. Women systematically underestimate their own abilities. If you test men and women and you ask them questions on totally objective criteria like GPAs, men get it wrong slightly high and women get it wrong slightly low. Women do not negotiate for themselves in the workforce. A study in the last 2 years of people entering the workforce out of college showed that 57% of boys entering, or men I guess, are negotiating for salary, and only 7% of women. And most importantly, men attribute their success to themselves and women attribute it to other external factors. If you ask men why they did a good job, they'll say, I'm awesome. If you ask, obviously, why are you even asking? If you ask women why they did a good job, what they'll say is someone helped them, they got lucky, they worked really hard. Why does this matter? Boy, it matters a lot. Because no one gets to the corner office by sitting on the side, not at the table. And no one gets the promotion if they don't think they deserve their success or they don't even understand their own success. I wish the answer were easy. I wish I could just go tell all the young women I work for, all these fabulous women, believe in yourself, negotiate for yourself, own your own success. I wish I could tell that to my daughter. But it's not that simple, because what the data shows above all else is one thing, which is that success and likability are positively correlated for men and negatively correlated for women. And everyone's nodding because we all know this to be true. There's a really good study that shows this really well. There's a famous Harvard Business School study on a woman named Heidi Roizen, and she's an operator in a venture capital company in Silicon Valley, and she uses her contacts to become a very successful venture capitalist. In 2002, not so long ago, a professor who was then at Columbia University took that case and made it Heidi Roizen. And he gave that case out, both of them, to two groups of students. He changed exactly one word, Heidi to Howard, but that one word made a really big difference. He then surveyed the students, and the good news was the students, both men and women, thought Heidi and Howard were equally competent, and that's good. The bad news was that everyone liked Howard. He's a great guy. You want to work for him. You want to spend the day fishing with him. But Heidi, not so sure. She's a little out for herself. She's a little political. You're not sure you'd want to work for her. This is the complication. We have to tell our daughter and our colleagues, we have to tell ourselves to believe we got the A, to reach for the promotion, to sit at the table. And we have to do it in a world where for them there are sacrifices they will make for that, even though for their brothers there will not. The saddest thing about all of this is that it's really hard to remember this, and I'm about to tell a story which is truly embarrassing for me, but I think important. I gave this talk at Facebook not so long ago to about 100 employees. And a couple hours later, there was a young woman who works there, sitting kind of outside my little desk, and she wanted to talk to me. And I said, okay, and she sat down and we talked, and she said, I learned something today. I learned that I need to keep my hand up. I said, what do you mean? She said, well, you're giving this talk, and then you said you're going to take 2 more questions, and I had my hand up with lots of other people, and then you took 2 more questions, and I put my hand down, and I noticed all the women put their hand down, and then you took more questions. Only from the men. And I thought to myself, wow, if it's me, who cares about this obviously, giving this talk, during this talk, I can't even notice that the men's hands are still raised and the women's hands are still raised. How good are we as managers of our companies and our organizations at seeing that the men are reaching for opportunities more than women? We've got to get women to sit at the table. Message number 2, make your partner a real partner. I've become convinced that we've made more progress in the workforce than we have in the home. The data shows this very clearly. If a woman and a man work full-time and have a child, the woman does twice the amount of housework the man does, and the woman does 3 times the amount of child care the man does. So she's got 3 jobs or 2 jobs, and he's got 1. Who do you think drops out when someone needs to be home more? The causes of this are really complicated, and I don't have time to go into them, and I don't think Sunday football watching and general laziness is the cause. I think the cause is more complicated. I think as a society we put more pressure on our boys to succeed than we do on our girls. I know men that stay home and work in the home to support lives with careers, and it's hard. When I go to the mommy and me stuff and I see the father there, I notice that the other mommies don't play with him. And that's a problem, because we have to make it as important a job, because it's the hardest job in the world, to work inside the home for people of both genders, if we're going to even things out and let women stay in the workforce. Studies show that households with equal earning and equal responsibility also have half the divorce rate. And if that wasn't good enough motivation for everyone out there, they also have more, how shall I say this on this stage? They know each other more in the biblical sense as well. Message number 3, don't leave before you leave. I think there's a really deep irony to the fact that actions women are taking, and I see this all the time, with the objective of staying in the workforce actually lead to their eventually leaving. Here's what happens. We're all busy, everyone's busy, a woman's busy, and she starts thinking about having a child. And from the moment she starts thinking about having a child, she starts thinking about making room for that child. How am I going to fit this into everything else I'm doing? And literally from that moment, she doesn't raise her hand anymore. She doesn't look for a promotion. She doesn't take on the new project. She doesn't say, me, I want to do that. She starts leaning back. The problem is that, let's say she got pregnant that day, 9 months of pregnancy, 3 months of maternity leave, 6 months to catch her breath. Fast forward 2 years, more often, and as I've seen it, women start thinking about this way earlier. When they get engaged, when they get married, when they start thinking about trying to have a child, which can take a long time. One woman came to see me about this, and I kind of looked at her, she looked a little young, and I said, so, are you and your husband thinking about having a baby? And she said, oh no, I'm not married. She didn't even have a boyfriend. I said, you're thinking about this just way too early. But the point is that what happens once you start kind of quietly leaning back? Everyone who's been through this, and I'm here to tell you, once you have a child at home, your job better be really good to go back, because it's hard to leave that kid at home. Your job needs to be challenging. It needs to be rewarding. You need to feel like you're making a difference. And if 2 years ago, you didn't take a promotion and some guy next to you did, if 3 years ago you stopped looking for new opportunities, you're going to be bored because you should have kept your foot on the gas pedal. Don't leave before you leave. Stay in. Keep your foot on the gas pedal until the very day you need to leave to take a break for a child, and then make your decisions. Don't make decisions too far in advance, particularly ones you're not even conscious you're making. My generation, really sadly, is not going to change the numbers at the top. They're just not moving. We are not going to get to, we're 50% of the population. In my generation, there will not be 50% of people at the top of any industry. But I'm hopeful that future generations can. I think a world that was run where half of our countries and half of our companies were run by women would be a better world. And it's not just because people would know where the women's bathroom are, even though that would be very helpful. I think it would be a better world. I have 2 children. I have a 5-year-old son and a 2-year-old daughter. I want my son to have a choice to contribute fully in the workforce or at home. And I want my daughter to have the choice to not just succeed, but to be liked for her accomplishments. Thank you.
So now how many women CEOs? Any more hands going up? Yes, that's very encouraging. This is just a thought to leave you with. I would also like some of you to go through the Tata Global Beverages annual report for last year. It is all about women and how, things like from the tea picker to how she's become a tea taster and how she's grown up the ranks. It's a very women-oriented annual report, not so many numbers. I think it'll make an interesting read. So please go through that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am, for sharing your insights on gender diversity. We have a few questions from the audience. The first question is, what according to you should women do during their breaks from the organization to ensure that when they return, their skills are comparable to, say, a man who never left?
Stay connected. Stay connected to the people that you used to work with. Stay connected to the organization. Stay connected to say what the next guy is doing. Okay, if I was in digital marketing, for example, what's the latest in that field? Let me see, can I do a short 2-day, 3-day course on that? I mean, today internet, Google, everything is like the world. So please keep, whenever you take that break, stay abreast of what's happening in that field. That's really important.
Thank you, ma'am. We have one more question. In the video that you showed us, the lady was talking about working women who are well educated and aware of their rights. There are large chunks of women in India who do not even complete their primary education and are not even aware of their rights. How do we deal with that?
How many of you know of Lijjat Papad? That's the answer. There are ways. How many of you know of all these NGOs which happen in the villages? How many of you know of the Mahila Bank that has started? That lady, she was not, because she was not a graduate, she never got her approval to start the bank. Please, I would like some of you to read, to go through what all she struggled for, how she finally got that license, and how the bank is up and running now. So there are enough examples of women who just thought that yes, I want to do something, and they are out there. It's basically about what you want to do, what you want to think about. That okay, see, for some people it is the pressure of earning. For some people they have a choice that I don't. It's okay if I don't earn. My husband is there to support me. For some people, bringing those two square meals to the table for her 2 kids or 3 kids is what really drives her. So there are options for all of us. We just have to decide what works for you and what doesn't.
Thank you, ma'am, for enlightening us.